Okay.
First Universalist, so I still making my chips to you.
I have 2 pages for you. $10.
Welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this really nice spring day and Memorial Day weekend. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll try and speak up.
Okay.
We still haven't got our headphone thing. We tried it last week and it seemed to work part of the time and then it didn't work. So we're still working on that. I have hopes, if I can get Emerson here, I have hopes we can get it to where everybody can have a headphone.
Yeah, I can hear you better back here than when I sit down there.
Well, I'd like to see somebody with physics history explain how you can hear better unless you think it's reverberation, the sound's bouncing off the back wall and coming back. The other thing I thought about is I can get you a trumpet, you know, one of those things you put in your ear.
Ken and I used to use a coat, you know, the cone.
Yes.
Coverage in the car so we could hear one another.
Yep. That actually works too. I mean, that's the reason they used it. Okay. This is Memorial Day weekend, and I kind of slipped on that. I wasn't paying any attention to it when I was preparing for today, so we're going to mention it. And luckily Lloyd was right on top of that, so all of our music is going to be a Memorial Day type music. In the past,
was marked different, and I thought next weekend was Memorial Day.
Well, in June, I did too.
and actually usually it's at the end of May, so that's when you expect it to be.
No.
The calendar keeps changing.
It's the earliest it can be, I think, this year.
This year.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So that's not, I'm not using that as an excuse. I don't pay attention to the calendar. That's like, and I get in trouble for that periodically anyway. Okay, but anyway, we'll have some patriotic music and we will talk about what we sometimes do is go to the cemetery afterwards and have a little service, which I didn't have a chance to prepare for that. So we may do that in the future again, just to, because there's probably a greater percentage of our members that was in the cemetery than is in the pews. So we'll have to see what we can do with that. Okay, let's see. Do we have any announcements? No. I don't think there's anything going on. We have a tree down on our property line.
Oh, we saw that.
That's a huge tree too.
Yeah.
We're assuming that belongs to the neighbor. Nobody is. I'm sure that if it was ours, the village would be right on us telling us that we have to cut it up. So we'll see what happens with that. And I may volunteer if I can get my guys to do it if they need help.
Was it on the other people's property?
I think it's on the other side of the driveway,
Yeah.
but there's an easement. I remember when I first started coming here years ago, I used to park under that tree. So I was in the shade in the summertime, and those people complained that I was parking for 2 hours on a Sunday morning under their tree.
Oh.
So it doesn't give me a lot of impetus to be neighborly back to them. So but being as we are religious, we need to be neighborly no matter what the provocation. So, okay, we're going to hear from the prelude the national hymn, God of Our Fathers. there's something about organ music that really is moving. All right. Our chalice lighting, if you see me running up and down, that's because we're missing somebody today. Kenny's not here, so, okay. Chalice lighting. As the world shifts beneath us, we seek steadiness, the unwavering support of community, the unprincipled guidance of wise teachings, the faithful turning of the seasons. We seek within ourselves and in one another a devotion to all that is true, all that is just, all that is beautiful. We gather here to reground ourselves and to reorient toward our heart's calling. Here we hold on to what is good, what we believe, and what we must do. With resolute and compassionate hearts, let us worship together. Our opening hymn, and we're using the red hymnal today. Every time hymnals are reorganized, it's kind of interesting what gets left out and what gets added in. The same thing happened to the Church of the Brethren hymnal. It was a composite with the Mennonites, and a lot of my favorite tunes got left out. So we go back to the old hymnal. This is red hymnal 180, My Country, 'Tis of Thee. And 1742. That's an old hymn. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Words to live by even today. All right, our affirmation, a prayer against apathy. Nature is only ever at work. Take stock of the world around you, constantly in movement, each action suited to its end. Fire, with its ferocity and voracity, devours, ignites, It roars its presence and illuminates the front. From it, people recoil. It singes and scars, but it also clears space. Some of us must act like fire. Water with its elegant erosive powers, steady is the flow of its work, with direction, sustainability. A river is what nourishes and carves, not a typhoon which destroys indiscriminately and recedes, and leaves the people in drought. Some of us must act like water. Earth, which is with its food to eat, and generative soil, its many forms of living companions to comfort us in times of solitude, of loss. Earth rejuvenates and holds us. Some of us must act like earth. Air, so integral to all of us, we must remind ourselves to notice our breath. Not one of us lives without it. Not one of us is untouched by it. It cannot help but give and forgive. Single-minded, it knows everything as one. Some of us must act like air. May we each model our natures, the best in nature, eternally changing, knowing only movement, and an urge to create life. Amen and blessed be. All right, last week we did evil, which is kind of why we're doing good this week. They're a natural pair. It's kind of hard to find just kind of standard pictures of goodness. I mean, how do you picture goodness in your mind? And then we'll get into this a little bit. What's the difference between goodness and niceness, or what's the difference between being good and being nice? So we kind of went all kinds of directions here. And joys and concerns. As usual for our, whoops, let me go back. Not ready for that yet. We'll light a candle for our missing and basically our friends and colleagues who are not here. I have not heard anything this week, so if anybody has any information, pass that along. If not, we will continue to remember them every week. And we talked about this last week, we may start like an email chain or some kind of contact to see how everybody's doing. All right. Any disasters this week that we need to remember? Nothing local, and I don't think so. I think weather-wise you've been all right. So we're back to, let me get a piece. Russia and the Ukraine. We have our sunflowers as we do every week. No progress there. Killing is occurring on both sides. Drones are occurring on both sides, as we mentioned last week. Things are beginning to reach, I think, ahead from what I understand. Russia, the people of Russia are beginning to understand what it is like to go to war, because the Ukraine actually bombed with a drone Russian oil refinery in Moscow. So the people of Moscow, and there have been rocket debris falling on the city of Moscow. When the Russians shoot down a Ukrainian drone, the debris falls on the town and has caused damage. So for the first time, the Russian population is learning what it's like to be at war. Whether that has any effect in a country like Russia, where there is no actual freedom of choice, as we would like to see it, we'll have to find out. Israel, I don't want people to think that I'm on a tirade or prejudiced or anything else, but the transgressions keep rolling up, the abuse on Palestinian prisoners. The last thing this week was there was another freedom flotilla, if you remember what that is. People from all of Eastern Europe or Western Europe got into sailboats, motorboats, and loaded up with supplies, trying to take them to Palestine for Palestinian relief. They were just going to land on the beach and unload the supplies. They were stopped in international waters by the Israeli Navy. They were all taken aboard Israeli ships and taken to an internment camp in Israel. The people that have been released, and there were basically relatives, the sister of the parliament leader in Ireland His sister was on the boat and she was arrested. These people, and they are showing pictures, and you have to be careful of what you see on TV or what you see on the internet, what is true and what is not true. But from everything I can ascertain, these people are being insulted physically, mentally, verbally abused, and they have actual physical signs of torture. They have pictures of their backs with lines on them, with marks on them like burns. And that is their report, that they are being tortured by the Israelis when they are in Israel. We have talked about this every week, and we will talk about it every week to come, that it continues. Not every citizen of Israel is a torturer. Not every citizen of Israel is an abuser of Palestinians, but it is going on kind of like what is happening to immigrants in this country is going on. We do not support it. We do not want it to go on. But we seem to be helpless to stop it, so we'll have to see. If nothing else, we light our last candle as we always do for those prayers, those desires, those pains that you have not actually verbalized, and maybe you don't even realize, but we want everyone to know that we are here as a community to support the other communities in our community. All right, children's story. I kind of went in different directions, and I may do a little bit of this next week. This is, we'll see if it'll play. The most effective way to destroy people is deny and obliterate their understanding of their own history. I had a little thing here of George Orwell, but it doesn't look like it's going to play. So, once again, we need Emerson with some... So, I'm not going to worry about it. George Orwell, as you know, 1984, Brave New World. He went to war in World War I as a soldier and was appalled by what he saw. He also served in India, and he was actually a soldier in the British Army in India, or a policeman, I think, in India, and was also appalled at the way the Indian people were treated. He began to get his cynical view on humanity through that experience, came back and then went through World War I and the beginning of World War II, and ended up writing Brave New World and the story with the pigs. Basically, they pronounced freedom for everybody, but one of their slogans was 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. If you've read the story, Animal Farm is the name of it. I highly recommend it. It is a short novel, but it tells you what happens when a minority takes power and uses politics and propaganda to spread an idea that people support, and then gradually people lose their ability to control what is going on in their world. Everything disappears, and the pigs become the dictators that they overthrew the humans. Basically, the humans on the farm were overthrown. The farmer was, for being a dictator. And as the pigs took over, they became their own dictatorship. A word to the wise, a warning from George Orwell in the 40s to what we're seeing today. Okay, that's basically in the thumbnail what they talked about. They gave a really nice history of Orwell and a really good description. And if I can get it to play later, I may do that. All right, we are talking about good. We're going to take an in-depth, or at least a deeper look into good as opposed to evil. We talked about evil last week. Evil, how deep does evil go? Is evil something that people practice, or is it something that's born into them? Or is it something that's imposed from outside? If you were raised in a situation where you were abused, then does that give you the idea that abuse is the right way to be, or can you even control your ability to abuse? That's the plea of insanity for many people who commit crimes, is that they were abused or neglected or mistreated as children. There is a true validity to that, whether it is an exculpatory, whether it's an explanation, whether it excuses their behavior. That's another question. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is from Romans 12, verse 21. And another quote from Scripture is Micah 6, chapter 6, verse 8. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God. We talked last week about evil and its propensity for the replication in a worldwide scale. This week, we observe the opposite, good. And good and evil have always been connected, like the horse and buggy. Is this maybe outmoded, this connection? How often do you see a horse and buggy? How often do you even see a horse?
I saw them last night.
You saw us last?
It was kind of scary. We were over at Tip City and we were coming back on the, what is it, 571?
Yeah,
I think.
Tip City.
There was and this was after dark, and there was a Amish buggy coming towards us that just had like lots of yellow lights on it or whatever. It didn't really have a headlight or anything, you know. I thought, man.
I saw one yesterday.
Yeah, we've talked before the Amish. We've talked about the way the Amish spread. They're family owned, and they connect they hold their money together, and they help each other buy property. So, and as they buy one farm, then they buy the adjoining farm, and then the next adjoining farm. It's always interesting to see the electric lines go down and supplying the house, and the clotheslines go up. You can always tell an Amish place because there's a clothesline 100 feet long, covered with kids' clothes, babies' clothes, adults' clothes. Everything is done the old-fashioned way. Some of the Amish, we've talked about this before, some of the Amish, each church, each division, each bishop has their own rules. Some of the Amish have open carriages, some of the Amish have the covered carriages, most of the ones around here have the covered carriages. Originally, they even objected to the triangle slow-moving vehicle sign on the back, but as more and more Amish carriages are involved in accidents, they are becoming more aware of what needs to be done, and they're putting battery-driven lights on their carriages. As you know, horses don't need a headlight, so you won't see headlights. Yeah, horses have pretty good night vision, and basically you're just going down the road, and you're only going at like 15 miles an hour, so it's not like you need a lot of preparation. But they do need the blinking red lights at the back, and I've not seen the blinking yellow lights or the moving yellow lights at the front, but it also is a good idea from the front, because you can't see a black horse and a black carriage coming from the opposite direction. And if you happen to be wandering all over the road, like some of us do, when you're not paying attention, you can run into them.
That's right.
But almost every week there's been an accident with an Amish carriage or horse run into. Some of that is just carelessness. People come over the hill going 50 miles an hour, and there's a carriage going 15 miles an hour in front of them, and they can't swerve fast enough. So anyway, we got sidetracked here. Can goodness be taught? Is goodness something you can observe? When a door is held open for someone behind you, or when you slow or you see someone slow in a line of traffic to allow someone to merge, is that good, or is that just nice? I would like to see it, and I don't want to see it disappear, but is that goodness, or is that just being nice? Another saying is, goodness consists not in the outward things we do, but in the inward thing we are. We're trying to distinguish between nice being superficial and good being something that's a lot deeper in your personality. There's two kinds of goodness, according to some people. The positive, warm, supportive kind, like the color yellow. You can't really describe it, but you know what the color yellow is when you see it. Anything that brings short-term warmth, feeling good, satiation, versus the other kind, the long-term improvement of personal growth, spiritual improvement, a betterment of the human condition, that more likely describes the essence of being good. Character and intentions are described in terms of good. Goodness is a powerful force that can inspire others to do the same. Do you remember the movie Groundhog Day? Has anybody seen it? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty memorable movie. Bill Murray did the right thing. Bill Murray started out to be a despicable person, selfish, Nothing really likable about him at all. He's not helpful, not caring, not sensitive, only concerned with his own sense. He did, as he went to Punxsutawney and was trapped in Groundhog Day, which he repeated that day over and over again. Initially, he took advantage of it because he could take money, he could take people, he could take advantage of people because the next day he remembered what happened, but they didn't. So he could do the same person over and over again. But he basically grew discouraged with that and depressed, tried to kill himself, which was kind of humorous, if you can think of suicide as humorous. The funniest one was when he grabbed the groundhog, got into the pickup truck, and drove over the cliff into the gravel pit. And the truck, when he hit the bottom, the one guy said he might be all right, and then it exploded in a pillar of fire. He says, "No, I don't think so." The next morning, he wakes up in his bed again, exactly at 6 o'clock, the same day to live over again. All right, he lived each day over and over, escaping the repetitious trap of Groundhog Day. What transformed his experience of inescapable repeating pain into the bright day of new experience? Instead of just performing, changing a flat tire, performing the Heimlich maneuver on the mare, catching a falling teenager out of a tree, he internalized goodness. He actually believed and radiated goodness instead of just performing good deeds. Just as there is a difference between doing what you are told or taught and being good, and doing it as an expression of your inner self. If you are forced to do good, are you a good person, or are you doing good because that is the right thing to do? Bill Murray escaped it because he started doing good things for other people, and he did them kind of superficially as he went along. But as time got through, he actually became a good person in the movie. I'm not sure Bill Murray is actually a good person in real life. I've heard stories. But in the movie, he became a good person, was transformed, and basically fell in love. And the person he had tried to manipulate, the woman he had tried to manipulate at the beginning, he actually established a true relationship. Groundhog Day is a movie worth watching every Groundhog Day. Goodness in the Bible is often portrayed as a reflection of God's nature as perfect, loving, and merciful. As you are aware, as Unitarian Universalists, this belief takes a pretty oblivious sidelong glance at the Old Testament. God's early history is replete with death, destruction, and despair. The Great Flood took almost all the young, the old, the guilty, the innocent, the evil, and the good. There was no discrimination. There was no sparing of the innocent, the newborns, the elderly. And as I'm saying this, it reminds me again of Palestine and Lebanon. The damage that is done to target their enemies seems to include the young, the old, the newborn, the infants, the children, the women. They are all killed indiscriminately as the Great Flood killed everybody. The Old Testament says the world was evil and deserves to be cleansed. Not everybody, as we all know, was that evil since. What we can't truly understand until we delve into an example like Machiavelli, which I have up here. Machiavelli was a writer in the 1500s in Italy, created a new understanding of the behavior of people, and primarily he was giving advice to the prince. He was one of the first political commentators, one of the first political advisors who shaped the reign of a prince. The infamous Italian thinker who coined the phrase, "the end justifies the means." We've all heard the end justifies the means. And Machiavelli has a terrible reputation. I'm not sure where that comes from. It's if you say you're doing something Machiavellian, it is considered evil. He does not consider good and evil. He considers what gets results. And that's what we're going to look at a little bit. Machiavelli asks, is there a difference between nice and good? Let's see. The more reliably kind you are, the less kindness is valued. If after a long repeated series of gifts, you draw the line on unreturned generosity, you are immediately labeled a greedy skinflint and flayed on the village gossip line and the channel. If you try to help people and you help them over and over and over again, they come to expect the help. And if you stop helping them and you say it's not working, they consider you a terrible person. Why aren't you giving to us anymore? This is Machiavelli's understanding of human emotion. The people who take you for granted are the people you most often help. People don't respect goodness, this is Machiavelli, they exploit it. This is not evil in a relationship, only human. The more something happens without effort, the more it is expected to repeat without effort. Would you like to be remembered as someone who was really nice but didn't get much done? This is another Machiavelli point. Would you like to be remembered as someone who did something nice but didn't get anything accomplished? Or would you like to be remembered as someone who was tough but actually made the world better? Sometimes doing good things means that you have to do things that don't seem good but have a good outcome. We call this today tough love. We've all heard tough love. Enabling an addict means providing for their habit to their ultimate destruction. Refusing to continue helping is labeled harsh and judgmental, but is there any other way to help an addict? And it doesn't matter whether it's a drug addict, an addict who is addicted to violence, an addict who is addicted to laziness and not working. And I've given you many examples of the people that I work with and the people who rent houses, who do not pay rent, do not pay their electric. And if you tell them you're going to evict them, then they're all upset and you're not being nice and they all have an excuse. There has to be, and we've not found in this society yet, a way to remediate these kind of problems. A parent who enforces discipline is teaching success in a hard world. Do you believe that? At times, Machiavelli ventures into the eternal black and white trap. That is, when we say something is either black, either white, is either wrong or it's either right. Maybe parenting, teaching, mentoring is a tailored mix of strict and permissive. The more authoritarian of us are lured into an automatic response of applying the rod as an educational tool because it worked on us, because seeking it feels more effective, because spanking feels more effective than standing in a corner. You still hear people espousing corporal punishment in schools, corporal punishment at home. We've talked about the fact that all spanking and physical violence teaches is that physical violence gets results, and the child grows up to use physical violence on other people. Watch a successful horse trainer at work. Sometimes they push, sometimes they step back, then again apply pressure in the desired direction, and again they stroke and reassure the horse. It is never violence and force until the horse does what they're told, but it is never complicity. It is never not applying a little bit of pressure. If you watch the trainers on YouTube, it is pretty amazing. They never use brute force and anger to gain subjection. They always have a rod. If you've noticed, they always have a long, thin pole like a whip. A lot of times it'll have a flag at the end, but they never hit. They indicate, they show direction, they guide. Sometimes they touch with the flag on the end or the whip. They are trying to acclimatize the horse to seeing that flag. Horses are prey animals. Any new thing will excite them or scare them, and they are liable to bolt and take off in a different direction. So the trainer's job is to acclimatize them to any strange thing. If you watch the trainers for the police force, they blow plastic bags around, they run flags in the air, they have them walk through puddles, they have them walk over sticks. Anything that you can think of that might scare a horse, that's part of the training regimen. They are persistent and caring. They are there day after day, always teaching the same lesson, always adjusting their lesson to the horse's progress. It might be a lesson for us to train people. Machiavelli says nice guys finish last, nice people avoid conflict, good people resolve conflict. Nice people avoid conflict, good people resolve conflict. Goodness as an exposure, as respected. The always kind can be pushed around, taken advantage of. When someone never shows teeth, people assume they don't have teeth. When someone never shows teeth, they assume they don't have teeth. It's a generosity trap. The more you give to people, the less they appreciate it. It's an entitlement. If you stop helping, they become angry. You give and give and give, and people get addicted, and then they get mad when their addiction is stopped. One act of kindness is appreciated, another is thanked, but by the fifth and sixth time, only expectations remain. Another example is the Christmas Carol. We've talked about that before. Do you remember at the end, Scrooge tears up all of his debtor slips? Everybody who owes me money, your debts are canceled. And that is the end of the movie. Scrooge is happy and goes to dinner with his family. What happens January 2nd? Does Scrooge continue to loan money? What do his debtors expect? Do people still ask for loans? Do they expect to repay loans? Does Scrooge continue to loan money? What kind of interest rate? What does he do for collection if they don't pay? If you remember during the movie, people were unable to pay and he extended their loan for an additional expense. That is basically the way business works. We've talked about this before. The reason Jews became ostracized in Europe and also became so powerful in Europe was that Christianity at that time, the 12, 13, 1400s, prohibited usury or getting loans. Actually, the Muslim religion prohibits interest on loans at this time. So Christians were not allowed to do that, and the Jews were forced, I say forced, were given the opportunity to loan money. So Jews went into the banking business. That's why when people talk about Jews controlling the banks, that's the history of Judaism and banking. Christians were not able or not allowed to do that until the rise of the mercantilism, or in the 1500s, when trading started to work. When companies or people traded from Sweden down to Germany, Germany down to Italy, then they found spices in India, and then the English people, the white people, the regular people went into business and began to accumulate money. That's when business started, that's when business was accepted. That was the Reformation. This is all tied together. The Reformation encouraged people to work and be thrifty and frugal. That's all part of the whole business thing. We may talk about that sometime. Okay, let's see. So what happens with Scrooge? We don't know. You can extrapolate. Does he continue to loan money? Does he say, I'll give you a low interest rate, but you're still gonna pay? Does he take people to court? In those days, they didn't have the thing where they take part of your wages. What they did was put you in prison, which didn't make much sense. If you're in prison, debtor's prison, you couldn't pay any wages. But punishment even then, and it's hanging over today. Today we put people in prison, this is a sidelight, because they can't pay their bail. If they're in jail, they can't pay their bail because they can't make any money. So some people, poor people, are in jail for months before their trial comes up because they can't afford bail. When they've tried to eliminate bail and let people out, and there are rules on this, you don't let murderers out because they can't pay their bail. You don't let people who violently attack people out. But if somebody didn't pay their traffic tickets, and then you got caught by the police with outstanding warrants, and you got arrested, you're going to put that person in jail so they lose their job? And that is the compulsive, abusive prison system we have now. Is conservatives will advocate no people getting out of jail without paying bail. They don't have any money. They can't pay their jail. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's another time. Is it better to be feared than loved if you can't be both? This is Machiavelli. Weakness makes you a victim. Do you see the trap here that's set out by Machiavelli? Strength, resolve, no gain without pain, discipline. What I keep coming back to is the army will make a man out of you. Will having empathy and kindness and tenderness stripped from you in basic boot camp and giving you the ability to kill people on command, which is not a normal human experience. Anybody can just pull a gun and kill somebody without any compunction. is a sociopath. They are sick. That is not something that people do. But in the Army, they are taught to do that. They are taught to kill people on the order. That is the problem we have with the military, and that is the defense that was used after World War II by the Nazis. I was only following orders. That is the excuse that will be used by ICE if the regime changes and the government changes and people are brought to court for their transgressions. They will say, I was only following orders. Have you read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand? Another book from the old days. Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I recommend it. A popularizer of the current prevalent theory that altruism, helping others for no immediate return, is weakness and futile. A lot of our people in government today quote Ayn Rand as something that they should follow. Read the book. It is shallow. You can't believe people follow these beliefs. Also labeled empathy. And here's a quote from Elon Musk. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. These are people who profess to be Christians. What does Christianity teach? Christianity at its basis teaches empathy. It teaches caring for others. It teaches nurturing the sick, caring for the foreigner, welcoming the widow and the homeless. Pretty amazing. As exemplified by the guy whose Doge terminated USAID and left hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people are dying from contagious diseases in Africa because all American money supporting the prevention has been stopped. Even now, Ebola and the hantavirus are in danger of coming to the United States. What do? We stop anybody from coming to the United States from any of these countries. We don't allow people, even if you're a citizen, you are not allowed back into the country. There was no great sending, let's send more money to help Africa. Let's send more money to provide more doctors. Let's send more money to provide hazmat suits and masks. Let's send more money to provide vaccines for malaria. All of these things were stopped and they've not been added. All we've done is build another wall to stop people we don't want from getting into the country. As we discussed evil last week, these policy decisions were not made per Machiavelli to promote the ultimate good. I don't know why they were made, actually. Maybe to save money, but if saving money was the major goal, would we be building a 400 or a billion or 2 billion, whatever the billions we need for the West Wing or the East Wing? The monumental ballroom that we're building that started out as 100 million and then went to 400 million and is now is $1 billion, supposedly paid for by donors and now being paid for by taxpayers, and on and on and on. What is being paid for by taxpayers? And there's a list you can find anywhere of the extravagances that are being paid for. And yet we don't have the money to pay for health care. We don't have the money to pay for Medicaid, Medicare. We don't have the money to pay for transportation. The last thing I just read this morning was that they are canceling or they are closing down the limitations in home health care. As you know, if you're a family member, a disabled person, you can get money from the government. Instead of the government paying an outside agency to come in and take care of your person, you can get paid as a family member to take care of them. They're going to eliminate any ability to use service dogs or the helper dogs because I'm not sure why it is. I think because they could save money. So hundreds of disabled people who use a service dog or an assistance dog like a blind leader dog, those people will be kicked off the rolls of Medicaid and Medicare for an arbitrary reason that they can't have a dog. It makes no sense. All right, save money or to make money available to build Washington monuments. Maybe just for the satisfaction of sitting back with a toast and a smile as the wails of pain and suffering rise to the heavens. It seems these people actually enjoy hurting other people. They actually enjoy seeing people suffer in the streets. It is a pretty sad commentary on what's going on. Here's a quote from Desmond Tutu. As much as the world has an instinct for evil and is a breeding ground for genocide, Holocaust, slavery, racism, war, oppression, and injustice, the world has an even greater instinct for goodness, rebirth, mercy, truth, and beauty, and freedom, and love. Desmond Tutu, with everything he suffered, still has a positive outlook, and I am not trying to say that with all the dangers and the horrors going on in the world today, we need to maintain a positive outlook. Doing good, being nice is not a weakness. I can be taken advantage of, just as the car racing along the berm to pass the line. You know, when you're at the interstate and somebody's jammed up somewhere, it goes from 3 down to 2. There's always some jerk who runs along the drive-along lane on the side, passes 50 or 100 cars, and then somebody will let him in at the front. There's always somebody that will do that. But those examples of abuse don't obviate the human value of doing good. We humans have always depended on helping each other. We still do, from the beginning of civilization. Okay, comments, questions? Next week? Haven't come up with anything yet, but something will pop up, so. Okay, offering, time for the offering. If you have something to contribute, please do. As we're doing the offering, we're going to hear the Navy hymn?
Yes.
Okay. Navy hymn, which I don't think is in the book. It's Melita. I'm not really familiar with it, so I'm kind of interested to hear it. Our closing hymn is 174, once again in the red hymnal, America the Beautiful, or A Beautiful for Spacious Skies. amazing. 1894, 1880, or 1904, and 1882. The words are so relevant today. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrims' feet whose stern impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom's beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw and confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Liberty in law and mend thine every flaw. Even in the 1800s, they knew there were mistakes that would be made that needed to be repaired. Do not tell us that there are no flaws in American history. Do not teach us in school that America has been perfect from its inception. It is the country that it is because we have improved on every mistake that was made by our ancestors. Okay, Extinguishing the Chalice, Faith Like a Light by James Gallinsky. Our faith, like a light, illuminates the path before us so that we can face hurt with love, cultivate compassion, live humbly in community, and confront despair with the awe of life. Though our flame is extinguished, our faith shines bright before us. Our postlude is God Bless America. As we close our service, we're going to dedicate our candle that we always leave lit for our service people, service members, 13 who have died in Iran. That is the reason for Memorial Day. And I guess my question is, we are now repopulating the census for the American Legion. Will veterans for foreign wars, will they be able to join that organization? Because this is not a war, it's an excursion. I don't know. So that candle for them. And does anybody know what this is? This is a close-up. These people are filling up lines of chalk. Does that seem a little more recognizable? This is Oxfordshire, Uffington, the Chalk White Horse. It's a prehistoric horse that was created. As you know, we always have to have something horsey. So this time we are doing a piece or a memorable horse in chalk. And they still, the people of Abingdon, because it's a tourist attraction, they still go out and place new chalk on the old chalk to keep it bright and livable. But the question is, how do you suppose, before they had drones, this is prehistoric time, this is like thousands of years ago, how did the people who created this, without a drone, without a tree tall enough to see from the top, how did they know what they were creating? Look at the side, that's what it looks like when you're up close. This is what it looks like from the sky. They had no way of seeing this from the sky. They had no way of knowing what they were creating, but that's a symbolic horse. That is truly a horse. There's no way of mistaking that for something else. So just another curiosity and another kind of paying homage to the ability of human beings to make their situations look grander and more sensitive and more beautiful, even if they don't know what the big picture is. So that's our goal. All right, coffee and donuts. I didn't get a chance to get to the Kroger's on Friday for my discount, so you'll have to clean up the leftovers, and I promise I'll have more donuts next week.
We appreciate it.
All right, that's the end of our service.